had this predict had knowledge
I
of
mean,
this in foresight?
my understanding is, and this is just what I've heard from around or whatever, but that it's known that the official program disbanded in, I want to say, 1995,
Mm,
and became public shortly thereafter, around 96,
officially, quote
and
unquote.
officially. But what I've heard other people say is that it's like, you can hire contractors for anything, right? And if individuals want to hire a remote viewer as a contractor, that kind of stuff I've heard is kind of still alive and well, but it's not an official government sanctioned thing necessarily. Um, you know, it, but I mean, why wouldn't you use it? Like if you know if you are working in a position that would benefit from knowing information that can't be obtained through traditional means, why wouldn't you use that tool if you are aware that that tool exists? Um, I think it's probably still going on, but in some ways, I don't think it's like as insidious as some people think, like that it's a big conspiracy and they're trying to hide that it's still in use or anything like that. And I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe there is some crazy stuff going on. Who knows? But it's it's a useful tool in for intelligence gathering. Like it was used for like almost 20 years, a little maybe even over 20 years by the military. It was 70s to 90s, and one of the kind of OGs from back then, I forget who it was. I want to say Ed May or somebody said something along the lines of, they had an 80 or 90% return customer rate within various agencies while the official program was going. And I mean, you're not gonna get that kind of customer retention if you suck at what you're doing, you know. Like, and I've
Absolutely.
seen some of the work that they did. It's declassified, a lot of it. Like it, and there's some
Absolutely.
really banging sessions in those archives too.
And there's like, guys like Joe McMoneagle and um David Morehouse that are just, um they're just their reputation precedes them. But we did have
Yeah,
a question for you. Um
yeah.
Jess asks, when Josh has a chance, she is wondering if he thinks certain people are more sensitive to energy. For example, people that have experienced NDEs or have a neurodivergent. I'm sorry, NDEs or neurodivergent individuals.
Uh, I think definitely, yeah. Um, Neurodivergence. I've seen that for sure. I got a little bit of that going myself. Not gonna lie. And NDEs for sure. NDEs can kind of serve as the awakening experience that tends to precede awakening to these types of abilities and things, and perceptions. It opens your perceptual doors and windows, so to speak. Um, I've never had one. I have a buddy who's had four, and he is
Four?
immensely psychic
Jesus.
now. Yeah, yeah. He had numerous heart attacks, very severe ones, and he said, I shouldn't be telling his story because he's got a movie coming out about this, but he he went to the same place each time, and each time he came back, he was more in touch with energy and stuff, and he's got some he knows shit, just like lots of remote viewers know shit. It that's To me, that's the big kind of goal of remote viewing is, and why more people should try it out, is it can open you up in that way. It gives you this sort of functional baseline of connection to your own subconscious and therefore your own intuition. Like we were talking about earlier, it sort of strengthens those creative, intuitive muscles. So, again, back to the question, another group that I would say is powerfully sort of above average with their psychicness is anybody who does creativity with regularity, like professional artists, musicians, photographers, videographers, and people who work in healthcare and stuff too. If you're dealing interpersonally with people in deep ways, I think that tends to open you up a lot to this kind of stuff. Certainly on the more empathetic side of how this stuff works. Like remote viewing will train remote viewing is cool because it'll train kind of all your different psychic faculties just by the nature of what a remote viewing session is in its structure, because it makes you, again, if you're using structure, it makes you go through this list of, okay, check all the different senses and psychically, use your psychic versions of each sense to detect information about your target. So it, remote viewing can sort of awaken the same stuff as a near death experience. That's what it did for me. I spent months just diving headfirst into this when I first came across it, and did multiple sessions a day for 3 months, and then after that again for a year I kept almost every day at least one session, and I still do. Like now I do a lot more kind of little associative remote viewing sessions and stuff that aren't as hardcore. It's like I draw an ideogram, and just a little scribble on a page and say, okay, what does this look like? What does this feel like? What does this represent? And whatever kind of the first thing that comes to mind, I'll jot that down, and then I'll be shown two pictures, and I pick which one I think is the right picture,
Mm.
and which one kind of taps into what I was sensing, 30 seconds ago when I did my little session. So, and that's how people do, binary choice type stuff, like, sports games and things like that.
Right,
But,
right. Well,
but
we'll get
yeah,
to we'll get to see your process a little bit, hopefully in a couple minutes. So, I'm very interested to see how this whole thing plays out, because I want to see. I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, I've gone through remote viewing sessions with you now, so I understand a little bit more of not nearly as much. I'm obviously, like, I've been through maybe a couple of these things now. By no means at all an expert, but I've seen your process. So, um, I definitely am familiar, at least with it enough,
yeah,
where it should be fun. So, in a couple minutes, we'll start that. But, um, is there any way that the audience can try to do this themselves? So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll plug my course first, rockstarintuition.com. It's a fully featured course on how to do remote viewing. It's kind of meant to be like a 30-day challenge, which is sort of how I started. There's something like 10 sort of normal targets, and then there's a bunch of repeatable targets, and I'm building on that list, as time goes on too. But it's there's a free trial of it where you do the first few chapters, and it takes you to your first remote viewing session. The remote viewing subreddit and Discord are both really good. I got a lot of friends there that I learned from. There's a very active community of people who do this stuff for fun. Some of the professional types are in there too, and yeah, it's there's a whole
what I
community
think
around it. Like there's thousands of people that do it.
what I
I'm
think is
actually surprised it's not more popular.
what I think is crazy, that like law enforcement will still utilize things like this. I know people
I know
who at
people who
least,
have done sessions that have saved lives. Like
yeah,
yeah, it's a real thing.
like I've had people, remote viewers, psychics, tell me that they worked for this police department, this police department, this police department.
Yeah,
And I check into it, and lo and behold, they're not, they, they don't, it's not like you could, it's not something they use in court, obviously, but it's a tool that they use, and it's incredible.
yeah,
So to even see that, it just it it does lend a certain credibility to it, at least in my mind.
Yeah,
I,
and I mean you can use it for practical stuff too. Like my buddy Josh in the chat there, Kamikaze. He uh, he helped me figure out what was wrong with my bass amp a couple weeks ago.
you told me
It
that
was
story,
all
dude. That's
quiet and weird and
wild.
not working. Yeah, so I tasked
That's
him
the
on it.
person.
He was completely blind, and he did what's called a cowboy session, which is a remote viewing session where you don't really use the traditional structure. You just kind of freestyle it. It's like punk rock remote viewing, and he does it in his car driving, and it was he absolutely nailed it. He just like was talking into a recording device and saying what impressions came to him, and he described a system that with an input that was coming from a person, and then there was a signal coming out of something the person was holding, probably a guitar. He thought maybe because he knows me that he was just kind of assuming it was something musical, but it was. So he was right. And yeah, anyway, I'm gonna do a whole video on that too. But
Dude, that was
he's in the chat. He's like, I was just about
when
to
you
tell him about
showed
the amp.
me when you showed me that, I was beside myself.
Oh, I did
So
show you
that
that. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
yeah. So that's
yeah,
him. That's him who
that's
did
him.
it.
That's the guy who did it. Yeah, and I
Oh
still have.
man.
It ended up being a tube that was busted, which is, to be fair, the most traditional thing that's wrong with a tube amp. But he didn't know he
Y-
was remote viewing a tube amp, and yeah, like he described exactly these little
The
gears,
mechanisms that are
like
inside
yeah,
of it.
the stuff inside. I can't get a good view
So
of it
like the
here,
gear
but yeah,
wheels on the inside of it that
yeah,
make
he
it
drew it exactly, and he's like, the out of these two, there's a third one that's a different color, and that's the thing that's broken, and he nailed it like exactly. It was crazy.
yeah, and I
But yeah,
thank you for thank you for the super
it's
chat
useful
too as
stuff.
well. So all right, man, let's fucking let's put you to the test. Um, I'm gonna play a little intro because I don't know if this I don't know, strange stories maybe. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. I'll have to create
That's
something
okay.
new. I'll have to create something new. So how do we do this to the audience?
Um, so what I would suggest is maybe I can share my screen. I've
Okay.
got a where the heck is it? It's behind my
And
camera.
again, I was double blind. I mean, this is double blind. I don't know what's on the inside of the envelope just as much as he does not.
Okay,
But I will mute
window.
myself.
So I don't know what this looks like or anything, but can you see sort of a blank piece of paper? Yeah, there we go. I can make that wider if you want to. I don't know if that's helpful. There we go. Zoom her in. This is my first time doing one of these live, so we'll see how she goes. Cool. Ugh, every time I move it, it gets messed up. Okay, cool. I think you're muted there, Ty.
So yeah, sorry about our layout, but we're experimenting with style and how to do this. Eventually, I'd love to do some like call-ins and have people um, really get engaged. So let's get this started, man.
So so usually what I do is I start with stage one, which is an ideogram. Typically, I would get a target number, which I would write down first. So I'll try to do normal structure here. I got my base too. So stage one is called the ideogram, and it's basically just a little. We breaking up here.
No, so, you're breaking up.
the, the ghosts are bugging me. That happens
So,
sometimes.
I sent you the target number in private chat.
Okay.